So in this video, we'd like to cover the onboarding process. The first step that we typically do is to ask the customer what are their main objectives, their pain points, what systems they need to integrate before we get into the actual onboarding. And with the onboarding, we typically then provide them the onboarding link, which is always at Acterys Onboarding, typically in a Zoom or screen sharing meeting, where we ask them to share their screen so that we can guide them through it. So when you go to app.acterys.com onboarding, you will go through the initial sign-up forms. So just type in the usernames and the email address. Then the next is the database name. Here I should use something simple because in the end this will be the admin username. So the name of the database will be the admin username, and the name of the database is also something that they will use a fair bit. So there's no point having long names here with spaces, which shouldn't be used. So it should be a simple few letter name. Also best no numbers or anything. Then the name of the company. Here we see, and this will potentially happen to you as well. If this already exists, it will be refused. So I'll make this a little bit simpler here. Sales. Then the company name. The country. Here they typically select from a list. So best to type in the initial letters, then select it from the list. In some cases this gets obscured, so this can be a bit of a problem. Just keep this in mind. The telephone number and the city. Then the industry, whatever industry they are. Then this is important because otherwise you can't go ahead accepting the terms. If they want to become a partner, then they can tick this. This is really just a flag at the moment that gets added to the contact. There's nothing, no particular workflow then associated with it. And then we can see the screen with their admin username, which is always database name at Acterys on Microsoft.com. We normally tell the users to select this and copy it, so Control C, so they have it for the next screen. And then the final step is the submit. So in my case here, I have no problem here with the first name not being okay. So this is because I've used a number here. So that's a good training not to do this, but we can go back to the step now. And now it gets accepted. So what's happening now, the users receive an email to the initial email address that they have specified, not this one. This is obviously just the admin user. So in a normal situation, if the email is not blocked, the users will receive the activation link. They click on the link, the tenant will be created, and then they just log on with their username and password. So for a normal, if the process runs through normally correctly, they sign on, put in the username and the temporary password in the email. Then just paste it again and type in the new password. And this can be a bit of a challenge. This is based on Azure Active Directory security requirements. You can't use anything that is similar to your company name or your name. It has to be fairly secure, at least 8 characters, 1 number and 1 special character. So I hope to find something here now that will be okay. So this is looking good. This can be a bit of an issue because Active Directory will potentially refuse it, so you have to potentially go through a few attempts here. In my case, this was okay. This doesn't really matter now. Let's click here on yes. And this is it. So And in some cases, this email doesn't get to them. And for this, we have now a workaround. So in case this email gets blocked, which unfortunately happens due to spam filters and other factors, we have now a new page. So in case the email doesn't get to the user, you have the option to manually activate the registration. So you go to app.acterys.com partners, and then you get to this logon screen, and here you use the generic user. This is the same for everyone, partner@acterys.com, and the password test@user.com. This is an area that is not really relevant from a security perspective because the users can't do very much here. The only thing they can do is activate a database initiation, and this will then only go back to the email address that the user have used in the registration, so no one can really access this. There's no danger here, so this is not security sensitive. There's also no personal information revealed. The only thing that we reveal here is the database name. And we're only showing here the registration of the last hour. So you wouldn't see typically very much anyway. So likely we will only see the your inactivated registration requests, and only those will be showing here. And to activate this, and this is the only thing you can do here, you just copy this link and run it. And this will finally activate the database creation. So as you can see, this is running now. It will in a second say creating the database, which will create the Azure SQL database and all the relevant Acterys components. So this is the worst case in case the users don't receive the activation email. You have to go through this process. The next step is then, so this will be running now for a minute or so, when to create everything. You can see here now it's saying creating your database. Even while this is running, you can already then go to, or the users can go to click on the Acterys logo, go to the sign-in page, and then log on with their user. So then you use the username here, or the user has to use the username that he has set up during the initial registration. Click on next. And then click on forgot my password. Here, his email address will be automatically populated. He will receive an activation code once he has put in this robot check. So just type in this combination of numbers and letters. And then just click on email to email the 6-digit code. So you type in then the 6-digit code. This is a once only code. Click on next. And then the users can set up a new password. So this is the worst case scenario. In the normal circumstance, they will receive the activation email, which looks something like this. So now you will see the wizard and the activation and creation of the Acterys account was successful. On the wizard, you can take them through now, explain this is an important thing because this is how they access the Acterys database. So this is their own Acterys SQL Server database that they can access with every client tool that can access SQL Server. Important here, they have to specify the database name when they connect to the server from whatever tool they're using. Otherwise, the server will refuse it because they won't have access rights to the server. They only have access rights to this particular database. The other thing is the database is by default completely blocked, so no one will access it unless their IP address is on a whitelist. This can be done by just clicking here. This will add automatically the current IP address to a whitelist. Or if they do this at a subsequent stage, they can click on Save IP, and this will then allow them to click on the Add button here. In my case, it's already added, so there's no Add button, but if it's not yet added, we'll see an Add button here, and this will add the IP address to the save list, and they can use the the database or can access the database. On this screen, we see now the options to connect to the different connectors. So here I can immediately, for example, connect to Xero, enter my Xero details and add a company. Same for the other two solutions. There's actually now two more that we haven't listed here, HubSpot and Dia, that will be likely also soon listed here on this wizard page. The other option is the generic connection using the Cube wizard. I highly recommend, if you go through this process, watch the 15-minute data model video that's in the training area in the wiki that takes the users with the demo accounting data set through Cube Wizard, creating the model and creating a Power BI report in 15 minutes. So this is typically a great way to get premium enterprise customers started that are not using one of these connectors that we have or apps that we have. So in the next step, this just explains the difference between OLAP and the source tables. The source tables are the tables directly in the format as they come from the software as a service system, for example, Xero, QuickBooks, HubSpot, and Dia. Here the users can't change anything, they come as they are, as opposed to the OLAP table, which is in the Acterys star schema data warehouse format with a fact table and the dimension tables. Here the users have then all the options to edit dimensions, to do the write back and so on, but we have a clear separation of the data exactly as is, typically referred to as an operational data store or staging area, where nothing can be changed. It comes as it comes from the source system, and the OLAP tables where you can edit everything. So this is a good thing to explain. If you want, you can also show this to them in the database directly, where you then show them the table structure and the different schemas. So here we see now the database structures. This is typically only relevant if the users are more technical, but just to explain it, so we have the OLAP schema that is in the Acterys data warehouse format, where you have the actual fact tables or cubes as we call them. They always use the prefix OLAP, then cube underscore cube name underscore WB for write back. These cube tables are related to the dimensions that are used in this cube, and they follow typically the convention OLAP and then the dimension name. And then we have the source tables in the particular format as they come from the source system, for example, QB for QuickBooks, WFM for Workflow Max, and Xero for Xero. The new ones are Dia and HubSpot. Again, same options here. So this is just a quick demonstration of the schemas. If we then go forward, we can directly then install the app, the visuals or the Excel add-in from here. This depends on the requirements of the user. We recommend this for the apps or connectors to do this after they have added their systems. It doesn't make a lot of sense because you can't do it. It will work with the demo data, but not with their own data as long as it doesn't exist. So they have to have added their system to be able to use the app. The visuals on the Excel add in the same. Without a database, they will not give you much benefit. And then just we explain our software-enabled service model, that as opposed to just a product, you can provide them services and product, particularly relevant for the partners, so to establish a relationship, to tell them, we're not just leaving you alone with the product, you get all the services around it in a subscription model for the time that you choose, which is a nice way of generating recurring income. So you have, a subscription for software-enabled services for X days, X dollars a month, for X month. And this will then give them the option to use your services and have access to the product. Pricing, again, for this is up to you. The only thing that will be standardized at the price for the software, that's always the same. So you would use the software component as is and then add whatever service model you want to use. And this is it. And we just explain the support options, with in particular the knowledge base, where they can then access all the manuals and training videos. So here an initial introduction, and then important, depending on if they're using the apps or premium, the training videos for this, and in general some guidance how they can get started. And the same for premium, so step by step the initial steps, and then the training videos that I mentioned before, the 15-minute from start to data entry or planning system, where we go through the Cube Wizard with a demo data set, and then it ends up that the users have a planning form directly in Power BI. And then we have a few new ones for editing tables, so using the Power BI table edit visual, and then the Excel related ones where we either use a Power BI dataset or Power Pivot, and these videos explain in very extensive detail the steps there. And then for the apps or connectors, unless it was already done before, you can go through the adding of the source systems, just clicking on add, connecting to the respective systems. The process is similar for the other systems as well. So for these two, it's log on with the user. This is an API key. This is an API key that they can find in the Workflow Max, respectively XPM settings. So there's a key there for Acterys that they have to enter when they click on the add option. HubSpot, same thing. They have to use the API key that they get in the HubSpot settings. Salesforce is not yet available, and with Deer, it's again a API key that they get in the Deer integrations settings directly in Deer inventory. So after they've added the system here, so here we can see now the situation after a company was added. So we here have added this demo company global. So initially 6 months of data are added. I would recommend, if this has finished already, to add another year. And I normally start with the start date of the initial import. So this ran from June 24th to December 24. So I would then say the end date is the last day here. So this would be June 24, but 2019. And then, and then you go a year back, and you can't do more than a year. So otherwise the API will refuse it. Actually, our system will already prevent it. So we have done 2019. This should be 2019 here. And this goes back to 25/06/2018. Yeah. And then just run the update here and add some more data here. It's important that they add as much data as they can, because only then the balances will be correct. We always work with the detailed data, so every single transaction, which is a big benefit compared to other competitors that are working on the report level, because obviously they lose all the detail. But for the balances to be correct, the balances will be then really adding up all the balances over time. You need to have all the data in the system, so you might have to go through a few iterations and import 1 year at a time of data for the particular company or companies. Talking about companies, it's typically a good idea to add initially all the companies that the customer wants to use, and only then select them all and then do the update, because it will then automatically apply to all companies. In my case, I only have one here, but if you select all and then do the update, it will apply this to all the companies that you have selected. So this is the initial addition of the companies in one of the systems, one of the apps or connectors that we have. And then the users can immediately start with the app, which gives them the reports out of the box, and this depends obviously on the system. So we have one for Xero, one for QuickBooks, one for WorkflowMax, and soon Deer and HubSpot. So the users click on Get It Now. They click on OK here. They have to accept the terms. This will now get them to the Power BI sign-on page. Here they can then sign on with their new user, where I just click again on sign in, then click on start. And there's a check to invite other people. This we typically skip. And you will get then this message. For our purposes, they have to upgrade to Power BI Pro because otherwise the apps won't work. So they have to click here on try free, start trial, and then close. If they don't do this, the app will not work. So really make sure that they do that. Then just click on install. They can use the name that's suggested here or use their own. I'll just go with the one that's suggested here. And this will now add the app. So, and then after half a minute, 30 seconds, they have the app here. They can then either explore the sample with some sample data. So initially they get the dashboard here. They can go from the dashboard item to the underlying report. And then they see the sample reports. This is an old version here. No, this is a new one. They see the sample reports here with the sample companies. So consolidating 3 companies. We typically explain, they have all the power of Power BI. If they click on something, everything else adapts. If they move the mouse pointer to a particular point, they get the transactions related to this. They can analyze by tracking categories, which is important for the Xero users. They have then the sales reports all already correctly set up. Again, the interaction between the different visuals on Power BI, the option to do cool things like using machine learning and advanced analytics to find out, for example, what drove the increase here. So then Power BI comes back with the explanations. And the financial reports, where we as one of the few can really show proper financial statements with subtotals, percentage of sales calculations, the local currency value, the group currency value, prior year actuals, and so on. And also then if they click on something, they automatically get the underlying records. So this is the sample database. If they want to connect their own data, they can just click on connect your data, either here or in the initial step that you saw. And then the only thing they have to do here is put in their database name, the group country, and then the most important step here is to select OAuth 2. It doesn't work, Acterys doesn't work with basic Windows or database authentication. You have to choose always OAuth 2 or Microsoft accounts. The privacy level doesn't matter as we only have one source, so we can just click here on sign in, which should automatically happen because we are already signed in. And this will then link all the sample reports with the database of the customer. So here we go now. Now the refresh is happening. This will take, depending on the data, a little bit. So what I typically recommend is, this is typically not coming immediately. So just to make sure, you go to the folder. Oh, sorry, it's one below. Go to the new workspace, the data set, and then you can see here what the situation is. In my case, as I haven't really added for the new demo account that I was using for this demonstration, I haven't added anything, so this will give me now an error. But this could also give you errors if there's something wrong with the underlying data set. Where in some cases, when customers have Xero instances where they have duplicate contacts, then this doesn't work with Acterys because Acterys assumes a distinct contact, and this will potentially lead to an error. So in case this happens, which is not that often, but it happens, they have to merge the two duplicate contacts in Xero into one. So normally you will get, this will be empty, which means the refresh to the customer data source has gone through okay. To make sure, you can just click here on refresh, and this will then refresh the data set. And then typically after a minute or so, everything is okay. They can go to the reports, and we'll then see the report with their own data. You might have to refresh once, but then their data will come, and this is all it takes to set things up for the Acterys apps. It works in the same way for QuickBooks and Workflow Max, and soon also for HubSpot and Dia, when these apps will be available as well. Important here is they can edit things in the app, so they have access to the data set. They can create new reports if they want to. I normally use the invoices just to showcase this quickly. So for example, take the line amount by company name and show how they can create new reports. Typically, I guess contact name is better than company name because there's only one. So, and then go through the options in Power BI. They can show this as a matrix, and maybe a few other visuals. But they can't get to the underlying PBX. The PBX gives them full flexibility, and the big difference is they can edit the measures, which they can't here. They can't create new measures, or they can't also see what's behind the measures. This is on purpose, that vendors are able to protect their IP. In our case, we give the PBX, so the underlying template here, to paying customers. So if they do a trial, they don't get to this, but if they're a paying customer, they will be entitled to use the PBX directly, and then have the option to fully customize to their needs. So the PBX for all the different systems, in some cases even multiple ones, because we have, for example, for Xero, one for the basic one, which is this one. We have one for planning, and we have one for consolidation. So they will get all these templates that they can then customize to their needs, respectively. Typically, this will be done by the partner that will help them to customize the reports to their needs, or they will have their own templates that they will then provide to their customers. So this concludes the overview of the onboarding process. Initially going through the sign-up form, going through the wizard, using the apps and connectors, or going through the generic cube wizard, and then adding companies to the apps and using the Power BI app. Maybe the last thing that we will cover here as well is the Excel template. So if you want to use the Excel template, which is at the moment only available for Xero, you can go to Downloads, go to Xero Report Templates, choose the OLAP one, download that. Again, this will happen on the customer side. The customers can open this template. So the customers can get this template, which has typical financial reports already predefined in Excel. So profit and loss, balance sheet, sales, and then a date table. And to get this going, you just click on Enable Editing. Then go to Data, Queries and Connections. And then you go to the database variable, which is in the Queries and Connection pane. Then click here on Edit. This will bring up the Power Query editor. So here you can put in your database name and click on close and load. This will then automatically update the report with the database of the customer. They will have to sign on again. Again, important here to use Microsoft account, not Windows and not database. So they will, after they've added the database name, they have to authenticate against this database with Microsoft account, and then they will have all their data here showing in the Excel report that they can then update as they need it. So typically after that, we can close the queries and connection. That's not necessary anymore. You just work with the pivot table, and they can then just take the details that they want to, put them in the report, and create the report as they need to. And they can also then write back from here. So for example, if we have a budget scenario here, they can immediately write back on the total level or on the detail level. And then this requires that the Excel add-in has been installed, write back as well. They can use the report itself without the add-in, because in the end this is just a connection to the SQL database. But if they want to write back, they have to install the Acterys add-in, log on to this. Important here, and select the cube, which for these reports is finance for profit and loss and balance sheet, and sales for, or invoices for the sales report. Normally this should already be saved with the report. If it's not there, then you need to select this here, the particular cube for the particular report, and then you have all the options that the Excel add-in provides. So I hope you enjoyed this quick overview. Wish you all the best with your customer situations, and as usual, please don't hesitate to contact us if we can help in any way.